Hello, welcome to episode 19 of the Justin Johnston Show. I'm Justin Johnston, and I'm a commercial real estate agent. That's what we talk about, though we do get into other subjects. How that relates to commercial real estate, and real estate really is a huge involvement in all of our lives. Today, I am alone. Blake is tied up. He's had some actual car problems as well, but I did want to discuss all the crazy things that are going. I'm not saying there's not global warming. There probably is, but this has been one of the wettest, coldest years in about 40 years here in Utah. Crazy weather all across the country. Lots of changes, lots of things. The Fed met and they chose to not raise interest rates. They put it on pause for a little bit, which everybody was happy. I think it was the right move, probably. I've been watching this. I've been an advocate of nipping the inflation down, nip it in the bud and get it to where we're in a position that we can have growth, right? And not have everything take off. We've dumped so much money into this market. I say the government, they're spending like crazy. They're trying to solve every problem with a bailout. I don't get it. There's a lot more supposedly smart geniuses that you think that would be on the Federal Reserve Board, the banks. I mean, these are big banks that are going down. I mean, we're talking like economics 101. Oh my gosh, we invested in long-term bonds, 30-year bonds. Nothing makes sense when you've got this cycle of, if you go back 40, 50 years, the average of the 10-year treasury. If you've been watching the show for a while, you know that that's what I always track everything off of. It's not the Fed funds rate, which I think is close to 5% right now, but the 10-year treasury over the last 40, 50 years has been an average of 4.06. I use that as a mechanism. That's what it was several months ago. It hasn't changed much because it's only been a short time in comparison to that 40 or 50 year period. But at the end of the day, that is a great indicator of where we're at over a 40-year average of 4.06. My thought has been, hey, if we start to get north of that, then this is making sense that we're in a different era. But I don't even know how you make any comparisons to any other market or time frame, because we've never dumped this much money into the market. We haven't had this much debt. They just went through that little fiasco of raising the debt ceiling with this. We're potentially losing the reserve currency as the United States dollar. Other people are going around that. I hear a lot of arguments with that, but lots of things that are changing. What else is changing? Office. Office is in what they call the gateway cities, the big, large cities, San Francisco, New York, Los Angeles, downtown Los Angeles. What a fiasco. It's always been that. Where it's located is a horrible place to be. There's lots of options up and down from Orange County, Los Angeles. I mean, really, some of it takes about the same commute. But the bottom line is there's a lot of office options there. And why? I don't know. Something's going to happen downtown Los Angeles. I lived there, 30 years ago, and it had a problem then. It just has always had this issue and problem. And so you've got some of the people out there saying, hey, we're going to have a massive price reduction across the board. We're probably going to see it coast to coast. I don't know about that. People are talking about converting these offices to residential, mixed use, all within one building. Not all buildings work out that way. Not all areas work out that way. And so what are people doing? If they're not in the office, they're at home, right? That's what we've been talking about, this work from home. You can be very, very efficient if you don't have a lot of distractions at home, and if you have a nice home that's set up with all the proper amenities. You got high-speed internet, the right equipment, a good computer. That's it. You can almost run business from about anywhere. Of course, real estate, even though I do not always out and about, but it is a local market. I don't think I could run it from anywhere, but I could run it from my home most given days. It'd be a little tough on my team, but these are the things we can work out, video conferencing, all that. I guess with some of the changes are, of course, residential, multifamily has been strong, industrial is very strong, but what's even better, which aren't people, of course, people that love storage are always talking about storage, and it's held its own. It's been very good. People are storing their junk in more than we ever have before. And we love it. But hey, it's crazy to me, but I've got a couple of storage units, so what do you say to that? But what's actually got the least vacancy of any of the investments out there, and it's been a trend. I remember when I saw the first entire subdivision to be built, it was out in Eagle Mountain, West Utah County, on the other side of the mountains of Utah Lake. That's Eagle Mountain's located there. There was an entire subdivision of about 1,000 homes, but it was going to be sold to a developer that was going to build SFR, single family or residential. Another term that's being used out there, so the buzzwords BTR, built to rent. They're single family homes built to rent, and there's a huge trend of that going right now. Why is that happening? Why now? It makes total sense to me. I think there's going to be a greater opportunity. Right now, where do we see it at? It's in the Sun Belt. There is one city that made it, and I'm going to refer to this. In fact, look up this article. They're not a supporter of, or a sponsor. They're not a sponsor of our program here, but I do go to them quite a bit. I have a subscription. France Media has a publication that comes out digitally. They also actually send it out, I think, quarterly. It's RE Business, of course, that's real estate business. France Media puts on several activities with industrial. That's the one that I generally go to at Salt Lake. They have a panel of lenders, developers, commercial brokers like myself that have a panel. They go through asking a lot of questions where things are going in the market. This last year, it was right when they really started to raise interest rates, and there's been a lot of discussion with that. But of course, they sponsored that, and they also have some great articles. They've got a lot of insight, so I recommend go there. Look, so it is the most recent copy that was printed, but let's see, it's sometimes delayed here. So June 15th, so a day old. So Rent Cafe is a group that tracks these and build to rent, single family. The idea behind it, now we've been renting single family residential. I own several homes, have rented, they've been great. What's happened since pre-pandemic to now is that 2022, a record number of 14,500 homes completed. 2022. It was a 47, basically a 50% increase in deliveries over 2021. 2021 was an increase. There's about 45,000 homes that are under construction across America. It's about triple the new homes that were completed in 2022. So you can see that it is on the rise. Why is that? Okay, I think people aren't going into the office. They are mobile, not just in not having to go to the office, but there's been this trend, right? Moving out of areas that were maybe desirable at one time, San Francisco, New York, where there's become so much homelessness and poverty and crime. The crime is horrible in these cities. And people are saying, hey, I sold my house if I had a home. Maybe I was renting there, but I'm coming out and I'm going to get a home that I can work from. I'm only tied into a year or two lease. I can sublease the space. If I get another opportunity, I'm going to move. I think that's what is behind this as much as anything. Because you look at where they're moving to, and it's all these other Sunbelt areas where a lot of people are moving. Now, interestingly enough, there's not a lot of this going on in Florida. Florida is where a lot of people have moved, kind of record numbers to Florida from some of these other locations. A lot of people from California got out of there, the high taxes, New York, or down to Florida. But I said the Sun Belt, let me see here, I've got one other thing with these, when the projects, I said that there was about 1,000 home subdivision here in Eagle Mountain. It was sold to one developer to do just this. I wish I remembered their name. If I can look that up, I'll find it out and update you in the next episode. But it is a group where at least 50 homes are being built. So it's not just, it's a fully managed project that is under the control of one manager, one group, one developer. They build a certain type of project and they manage that. And I say it doesn't have to be 50, but from what this article is tracking, a minimum of 50 units. But that if they can build it from scratch, have that, it's very lucrative. Rents are up. And let me see here. I just want to say, make sure I'm quoting some of these proper things I thought were interesting. Of course, interest rates are going up. If you're going to buy a home, there's not as much inventory. So it's not just like right now, but ever since the pandemic, home prices have remained surprisingly firm. The number of homes on the market for sale is less than half of what there were in the years before the pandemic. Less than half. Think about that. That's dramatic. Sometimes you say, oh, it's a 50% loss, 50% increase. That's half of all the homes in the market across the country, right? And I would say here in Utah, because I don't do the residential as much, but I do try to track those numbers, but I bet it's a fraction of that. I bet we're 10% of what it was pre-pandemic, and it was kind of tight before that. Leading up to that time, ever since the recovery started to happen after '08, Utah's been a very tight market. And so it wasn't listed on any of these here because it's not obviously crashing in the top 10, but Utah's got to definitely be up there, and I'm hearing more and more interest in these. So in this last year, 2022, and coming into 2023, the built to rent deliveries, Dallas led I'd say overall Texas has the most communities that are being built and managed right now and proposed projects. But in 2022, Dallas was at the top of the list. Prior year, so in 2021, they only built 500 of those units. 500. There are almost 2,800 in 2022 that they were built. Phoenix is right behind it with 1,500. Atlanta, Greenville, South Carolina, Charlotte, North Carolina, Detroit, which notably, it's the only one that's not in that. Let's see, what would that make them? The third, fourth, fifth, sixth, with an explosion there. There was 458 units that were built. Of course, that's going to be on the rise. Myrtle Beach, Panama City, Florida. So Florida is on that list. I didn't recognize that initially. Charleston, South Carolina, Austin, Texas, and the only one that's really not in what you call the Sun Belt is Detroit. But it does make sense because there is revitalization going back there, and obviously it's a place where people want to live in this type of a community. A fully managed, not purchase. Nobody owns it. There's not a home in the subdivision or project that anyone will own, right? It's owned by the management company or the investment company. And here's what very interesting. So construction all across is high for that. It's a lot of planned projects, a lot of people a lot of investors, new investors creating groups within that. It's a great idea. I mean, there's actually several parcels of land here along what is called the Wasatch Front, which is I-15 that runs from South Utah County up through, I would say Salt Lake, but of course it goes into Weber Davis County. Several million people along that corridor. It's the majority of the population for the state of Utah in that small sector there, roughly maybe 100 miles of distance. And I can think of several that would be a huge home run to build the type of home that's got several bedrooms, several baths, not a large yard, but the amenities inside the home to not only just entertain, but also to maybe set up an office, do a studio like this, or have an office at home. The national occupancy rate, I said it was better than industrial or multifamily apartments. It stands right now at 97%. Multifamily at 95%, and industrial probably sitting around 5%, 6% across the country, but much tighter here right now at this market. We're probably at about 3% in Utah. Very interesting. So, there's a lot of other things you can read in this, but it does talk about how Texas, there's several areas there for Houston, Dallas, Austin actually is having the highest spike for that since 153%. But anyway, very interesting. And there's other, Atlanta seems to have a lot of growth in just about everything. But Salt Lake did make I don't know if they consider when they say Salt Lake, if that is Utah County as well, about 600 units being built and projected. So there's other communities. But it's not the actual numbers, it's the increase, right? We're talking like, say, 50%. This is a huge increase that's going. And I don't remember, it was not until after '08 that I heard of anybody looking to buy, and there was hedge funds that bought homes all across the country, single family, converted them to rentals. It changed the landscape. It was probably 5 or 6 years ago that the group that bought that out in Eagle Mountain that I saw. I've heard about it a couple other times. I've heard about it on a national level, but this is something that's going to be very interesting. I mean, I think this is going to actually lead and be a sector that there's huge opportunity. This is something, if you say 50 homes, a 50 home subdivision, is not unheard of. Now, to build it, not to sell, is a different investment altogether, right? But this is something I think that a small group of investors could put something like this together. It's a great opportunity, and there's going to be some places that it's better than others. My gut is telling me that if anybody was going to want to put a little conglomerate group together, you could do this in just about any market. If you understand your local market, and if not in your market, then maybe a neighboring market. But this is, I think, going to be a great opportunity. Of course, I bring this up not just, hey, look, wow, this is it. It's man, there's a lot of changes going on right now. I'm trying to bring up things we brought up in the past: senior housing, assisted living facilities. That I think is still just barely being tapped. We got 10,000 people turning 65 every day, or close to that number. It's very close, and we have an aging community. And thank goodness here in Utah, we actually have quite a young population. There's some other areas that's the case, but it's all the Mormons here with the young families or something like that. But there is some truth to that. But the people that are renting this are not old people, right? So what I'm saying is I'm trying to bring up things that are opportunities that hopefully will spark some interest in somebody out there. And if we can help in any way to take it to the next level of conversation, I'd love to do that. This is an opportunity. This is something I see that's going to be huge that will happen over the next little bit. The numbers aren't huge now, but if you actually look at the number of like apartments and rentals and things like that, there's some big tracts of land here in Utah along the Wasatch Front that these types of things will be built, and it makes more sense. It's a better buffer for some of these things. Anyway, great opportunities there. What other things are we looking at? Well, tune in. We're trying to find great opportunities. I will go back to office. So there's trillions of dollars. I think the numbers are, and this is pretty accurate. I'm rounding. I don't have it in front of me here, but I think the commercial real estate market is roughly $15-16 trillion coast to coast in America. And really, for the most part, everything's in pretty good shape. Retail, hospitality, industrial, residential, I consider multifamily, commercial at the size that we're talking about, levels there, which that is how it's categorized. This, I'm not sure, if you're talking, it's more than 4, 6, 8, 12 units. We're talking a minimum of 50 in these projects. Assisted living, senior housing. But yeah, every sector is actually holding their own, doing well. The interest rates have cooled everything down. There's not a lot of overbuilding of any of that right now that's going on out there. Some markets may be a little more saturated than others. So office is really hard to track right now, right? Because there's a lot of sublease space out there. So what is the vacancy, right? I mean, you have to almost really get into the numbers. You can't just look at what they are in from city to city unless you have somebody to really help interpret that data, because how much is being subleased. When are the leases coming up for renewal? I think we're going to have a bloodbath. I really do. And definitely some of these cities, you can't turn these properties around. There's just too much of the office product that people don't want to live there in those markets anymore. You don't have to live in some of these markets where they've got millions and millions of square feet of vacant space. So what does that mean? That means I remember for the last 15 years, I have talked about trying to make sure I had a group of investors that we were going to put something together that when this happened again, we were going to be in a position to swoop in and buy some of these revalued properties. And not knowing, to me, when industrial was coming up with the lease rates, I was thinking, heck, it was going to be industrial. That was going to be a great opportunity. Now, it's still a great opportunity, but not for the same reasons. The office is, I've got several studies that have been done. One's a 2-year study that was done out of New York, some universities back east. I've referenced it before. They call it the bloodbath of office. We're talking, 40-50% price reduction, revaluation in that market. I hope it's not that bad. Anyway, the point is there's great opportunity. Be thinking about this. Be watching this. And then as a final note today, before I let you go for the weekend, and even though you'll see this after, we got to get back to the basics. There is so much opportunity. This is the wonderful country of America. We enjoy a free market capitalism that still allows anybody that wants to make it. We talk about how it's not the same. Well, yeah, it's not the same, but the opportunity is there. I've seen people in my business that came from absolutely nothing, and they have a huge real estate portfolio. They didn't just make it in that either. They have other businesses, painting contractors, small software technology companies that didn't reinvent anything or come up with something earth-shattering. They came up with something that could service and help companies transition. And they've made a lot of money there, and they've also built a small real estate empire. I'm glad that I could be a part of that, and it's changed my life. There are huge opportunities that have come to me, and I think that we have a responsibility for that. The responsibility is not for that. The responsibility is, if you can do it, you must do it. And so if it's there, we all have varying levels of goals and ideas of where we need to be, but I think we could raise that bar. And what does that mean to me? We got to be less of a consumer base. And I reach out, I feel like this is important. I feel like Gen X, which is the generation I'm from, we don't need a lot, really, for the most part. I mean, it's there's some wealthy people. Some of the most wealthy people in the world right now are all part of our generation. Elon Musk, I love that he lives in a trailer. You know, it's just, I think there's things that we can do to benefit the entire world. And I think we could save more of our money or invest it and not be living so lavish as a country, and finding ways that we can help reach into our communities all around us here and to lift. I think we need to lift. And why? Because we can. If you're able, you must. And I do believe that, absolutely 100%. Hey, have a great week. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you on episode 20.